welcome to the Cardboard Herald podcast. My name is Eric, joined as usual by my trustworthy co-host Jack.
That's me. You
hello.
can trust me in anything.
Yeah,
give me
anything.
your money. Social Security. Well, no, please don't. The call to action is not to give me your protected information.
Your social security number to thecardboardherald@gmail.com, which isn't even our email. thecardboardherald@gmail.com. We'll send it somewhere else. So, but do that.
To be fair, I could probably do a better job with it than the Social Security Administration right now. I mean, fine folks that work there, but
they're doing their darndest. They're doing their darndest. It's not their fault.
Yeah, things are tough all around.
Well, welcome in, Jack. How have you been? What's been going on with you this week?
Well, I am doing really good. Christina is getting lasers in her eyeballs, or I guess she already did that. She got LASIK. So I'm kind of on my own this week. I've had some friends to play some games with, including I had a friend of the show and child waving to me in the background.
I'll blur him out, don't worry.
Oh, he's good. He's shown up in enough over the years. But friend of the show and game designer Mike Hyman, he actually came over and wanted to play Fate of the Fellowship. He's normally part of our campaign group, and since Christina's gone, we were like, all right, well, what do you want to play? And he was like, I wanted to try that Fate of the Fellowship game. We played it once, and he was like, that was awesome. It's not too late. Do you want to play it again? And so we immediately played it again. And then he was like, it's not so late that we couldn't play again. So we played 3 games of Fate of the Fellowship in succession, which it's not exactly like a super long game, but it definitely is chunkier than standard Pandemic for certain.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a marathon session, but it was great.
So he was tepid on it?
Yeah.
Tepid?
And we've already covered that on the channel. There are some criticisms, some qualms, some quibbles to be had, but for the most part, I still really enjoy that game, and it's probably my favorite thing to come out of the Pandemic system, aside from maybe just how revolutionary Pandemic Legacy, the first season, felt at the time that released. Other than that, I got Kinfire Council.
Yeah.
That I got a first play of that in, and it is awesome. It is probably the best first impression that I've had of a Euro in ages. It is just listen, I know that we're going to have another game that is actually thematically linked to Lords of Waterdeep to talk about here pretty soon. But this is a game that feels like modern game designers sitting down and going you know what? I really loved Lords of Waterdeep. How do we make something that's really innovative and fresh and new, but it still hits on some of those foundational concepts that Lords of Waterdeep had? Fantasy sort of questing, except you're removed from it as a politician. It's in there. City development, it's in there. Sort of politicking within the city and intrigue, it's in there. Tight worker placement, managing resources, it's in there. Even kind of dealing with, are you involving yourself in a shady cultist underbelly of the city and risking yourself in doing so? It's in there. None of those feel like they are direct copies of what was in Lords of Waterdeep, which is probably my favorite thing, that it feels like it's trying to do something new with that, but conceptually it really does feel like it's taking this now more than 10-year-old game and going, how do we make something in our world that feels like it moves with these concepts? I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, I feel like you've been in on the Kinfire world for a bit. or at least just you've been up in it.
Yes. Well, this is now the second Kinfire game that I played. I played a bunch of Kinfire Delve, which is great, and it's a little limited. And I don't necessarily like the sales model because it doesn't make storage any easier by having a bunch of different bespoke boxes for the sets. But this is just like a worker placement Euro standard just box, and that works great. And then there's the original Kinfire Chronicles, which has had like an updated second edition type of thing. Kinfire Chronicles Nightfall, yes. I want to say. I also got that. I just haven't played it yet. That's a big chunky box too, and that's a whole other thing. We'll get to that. For now, worker placement. Mwah.
Great, yeah, rad. We will loop back to the other thing, but
the alluded
other thing that we will be talking about. It's Builders of Baldur's Gate. We're gonna loop back to that because I feel like that will lead into it. I also have learned how to play Skull King, which is good because I'm entered into a tournament at Gen Con. So it's good that I've learned how to play the game.
That is good.
Friend of the channel, Board Gaming Bud, on Instagram, messaged me about joining this tournament. I said, sure, I got nothing else going on at 9 a.m. on that Friday. And so I have learned to play Skull King. Fun little trick-taking game. Is
there a new edition? I'm just pulling up Skull King, and it looks like it came out in 2013. So this is not exactly like new hotness here.
I know it's been out. They might have a new one coming out, but to my knowledge, no. That might not be true, but
there's a lot of recent discussion on BGG. So either Skull King is one of these, like evergreen games that people are just always going to be talking about, or there's some new edition. That's,
it did just come out on Board Game Arena, so that could be it. But regardless, I learned how to play it. Fun trick-taking game. It's pretty light. I do like the. It feels like a classic card game, just in terms of like you bid the number of tricks you're gonna win, but you have to be exactly right. Okay. So there's, which I feel like is the case with a lot of like Bridge has some notes of that, where you bid, and then if you don't make your bid, it's really bad for you. And if you go over, it's also not great.
Sick Tricks had a degree of that recently, and then also the Ghosts of Christmas Past.
Yeah, true.
Is that, or whatever the Dickensian trick-taking game has an element of like you need to win the correct amount of tricks.
Yeah, and I think that it's I like it. It seems fine. It seems like it's a game that I'm going to enjoy playing, but it also is like, it's not like it came out in 2013. It's not like world breaking that I've learned how to play it right now.
I'm looking at these characters, and I was very excited at first because I first saw Scary Mary, and of course there's the rhyme there, and then Evil Emmy, who has the alliterative name, and then the rest of them don't follow that convention. I mean, Tortuga Jack is Tortuga Jack, but Bad Eye Joe, Harry the Giant,
Betty Brave.
I guess Betty Brave is kind of alliterative.
Oh, I don't know any of these cards.
Could be stronger.
Oh, I don't know these cards. Oh no, I'm gonna have to learn these cards.
Am I talking about a different game here?
No, this is the same game. This is absolutely the same game. There was a new cover that came out in 2021. Well, yeah, I don't. I maybe am a little bit behind on where I should be in terms of Skull King, considering I am entered into a tournament. It'd be really funny if I win the tournament, having not played it until a week before the tournament. But so I've been playing that on BGA. And then I've been playing Builders of Baldur's Gate. We got a review copy from WizKids. It's one I've been excited about for a bit, just because I'm a big D&D person. And I was interested, especially, I mean, you mentioned Lords of Waterdeep. I think that there's the D&D board games have like a pretty strong, I want to say like bloodline. That feels like the right term. Pedigree.
There's a lineage.
Pedigree.
A pedigree.
Pedigree is probably the word I was looking for. And so I've been wanting it, like I've been wanting to try it out for a bit ever since we saw that it was coming out. I think I asked about getting a review copy of this before I left Juneau. I think so it's been a bit. It's here now. I've gotten a couple plays of it in. It's pretty solid. I think I have thematically, I think it doesn't land. Like there are just some things that you build, and as you build, there's a chance that each district gets attacked, which they don't tell you what's attacking the district. It's just like, oh, your district will get attacked, and it's like, who is attacking it? Is it like from within? Is it an outside intruder? Who is attacking? Which to me feels very silly.
Your owlbears weren't as domesticated as you thought.
But it's like every district gets attacked. It just to me feels like a little bit of a thematic faux pas, because you got options. Like there are things where you could be like, hey, we have like there's an impending attack at all times from this outside force.
Give me the elevator pitch on this. One of the problems, with having someone else step in and do some reviews on the channel is sometimes there's going to be games where you're like, oh man, I really want to review that, but the other person is going to get it because it makes more sense, and because sometimes you got to let Eric get the cool games too. So Builders of Baldur's Gate is one that when the announcement happened, we both were really interested in it. Eric has a lot more history with Dungeons and Dragons specifically, but Lords of Waterdeep is one of my favorite games of all time. And so a Euro set in the Dungeons and Dragons world was something that I was really ecstatic about. So even though you're covering it, I'm going to end up checking it out for sure. Yeah. But as soon as we're like, okay, so Eric's going to check this out, I kind of just set it aside as like, this is an Eric game, and until I actually get a chance to play it or I'm looking at Eric's review, I don't really need to engage any further in what is this game like. So I don't even really know what the core loop of this game is.
Yeah. So you play as a realtor builder of a person who builds buildings in Baldur's Gate. On your turn, you're going to either build a building, which has like, it's always a fixed cost in gold, or not fixed. Like you have cards in your hand that say you're trying to build the underhanded supplier. This costs 8 gold. When you build it, you get this special effect. They're usually pretty standardized. Like there's nothing that's like, oh, I've never seen a card that does what this does. It's like, there's not like a ton of repeats, but it's like, oh, if you build this, you get to do this effect. You also, on the board somewhere, there are plots that are like, that's where you can build these buildings right now. There's 8 of them total. As you build your buildings into your tableau, you pick somewhere on the board, you place your thing there. If each plot is connected to 3 other plots, if there's a building that is connected to your building, if somebody builds a building on a plot that is connected to your building, you get a small bonus depending on what kind of building you built.
Okay.
You also have a worker placement aspect of the game where there's 8 different districts. Each district has 2 actions that you can do by placing your worker there. You don't inherently ever get your worker back unless somebody builds a building in that district, or you take an action to retrieve your worker. But you also can't just do that. You have to like spend a resource to do that, and you don't get that resource inherently.
So is there a tight relationship between the building and the worker placement aspect? You know, like
not
does that get
particularly
pretty competitive.
So the worker placement, you can always go anywhere on the board. If you want to go somewhere where somebody else has a worker, you just return the worker back to their supply, which is kind of sucks because you don't want it. It's a difficult thing to get your worker back if you're not playing on the basic straight out of the box mode. Right. But it's like you don't want to just give your opponent their worker back because you don't want them to be able to take another action for free, essentially.
Stonemaier ended up doing a lot of that with some of their later worker placement games, like after Viticulture, with essentially like worker displacement. Instead of making it so you can't go somewhere, you're just helping your opponent be more efficient if you take the spots that they're already at.
Yeah, and I guess I've seen this recently in Galactic Cruise, because Galactic Cruise has something similar where if you want to go somewhere somebody else's worker already is, you kick it back to their supply and they get a bonus depending on where they choose to put it back there. But so there's the buildings that are all connected, and you're trying to build the buildings in a way that gets you bonuses by other people building around it. There is the worker placement where you get like fun one-time actions, and then hopefully you're able to get your worker back somehow. And then there's also on all of
dude, hope you're still on the payroll. Don't get eaten by a dragon.
I had a game I was playing the game yesterday, and a worker got just stranded, and because the person, all of the buildings in that district had already been built, and they weren't able to get a supply token, which is how you get your worker back. They just had that guy was just there for the rest of the game. You don't get the resource needed to bring your workers back inherently. Right. But so there's the worker placement, there's the building, and then the tableau that you build using the buildings also have like a special effect that is like, oh, you can trade this resource for 2 of this resource, and then you can trade 3 of this resource for like this big boost. And so it's like on top of you want to build buildings in a place where you will get special bonuses from people building around you, you also are trying to build buildings that will work with your combo that you're setting up in your like tableau. I so far have found it not super. It's fun, but I feel like it is not. It is very easy to run away with a victory. Like, it is very easy if you happen to get the right combo right out of the gate. Like, the game I played yesterday, I had a combo that was just in the starting deck of cards, or the starting hand of cards I had. There was, like, a card that gave me 2 resources for free after I built the building every single time I did my collect income phase. A card that gave me a piece of mail, which is one of the resources in the game, for free every time I did my collect income phase. And then I had a way of trading the resources from those 2 for like effectively 10 victory points a turn. And I was just like,
how many of those cards were Corvid related?
So none of them, from what I can see, are Corvid related. So
Okay.
I don't
But
think you could just take
spiritually,
out...
they are the Corvids of this game.
Spiritually, the one that said, hey, you get to take another building's action for free by playing one supply, that felt very Corvid related. A Corvid type card, you might say. Where it's just like,
Hideo Kojima is like, this is the first Corvid type game
card.
ever made.
It was just like, well, I had a card that let me just... I got to do another building's action for free, and so I got to do the most powerful action for free every turn by paying one teeny tiny resource, and it was like, oh, this feels super unbalanced, and the final score of that game ended up being like 140 to 50. Like, I almost lapped the other player. Like, it was not... It was very much a... There was no way for them to, like, catch up in any way. Which kind of sucked for them. Yeah, catch up. Jack's favorite condiment, not Obama's.
Yeah.
Do you know about this?
Actually, I don't, and you're just lying to the audience. Not about Obama, because I don't know about that. I'm actually not really a ketchup guy. I typically won't put ketchup on a burger.
Well, I don't put ketchup on a burger. I feel like I'm usually a mustard guy. But regardless, Obama came out with a big statement where he was like, if you're older than 12, you should not be eating ketchup.
It's probably true.
Not untrue. I kind of agree with him on that one.
Yeah, strong 180 from our current president and his opinion on ketchup.
I know. Yeah. Big ketchup guy. This week's theme is ketchup mechanics in board games, ways for you to not get left behind. Kind of when I was planning this out, I thought of talking about some of our favorite ones that are implemented well, what makes for a good ketchup mechanic, what makes for a bad ketchup mechanic, and do we need them? That's kind of was my thoughts on this theme or this topic for this week. And I was kind of thinking about it a little bit because I actually, the first time I played Builders of Baldur's Gate, I thought it had a cool catch-up mechanic, which was the random attacks that happen make it so that whoever has built the most buildings has the most to lose. So when I suggested the theme for this week, that was what I had in mind was, this was kind of a cool implementation of a catch-up mechanic.
So with you and talking about the runaway leader situation, I was actually taken aback because when we were talking about potential topics for the podcast, you were like, what about catch-up mechanics? Because Builders Baldur's Gate has a pretty interesting one. So maybe it's interesting, but in practice with playing it more, how's it actually working out here?
So the reason I thought it was working well was so in Builders of Baldur's Gate, after a district has all 4 of the plots that are available to be built on in the district become available, that district gets attacked. And if you have not properly built defenses, you just lose those buildings you've built. Mm-hmm. But couple things. One, you don't actually lose the cards in your tableau. So you kind of just lose the pieces on the board where you get fun, small little bonuses that you can kind of take or leave in a way.
Right.
And if you build if you contribute at all to the defense against the attack, your buildings are safe. Like, even if the attack succeeds, you get to keep all of your buildings. And so I think the first time I played, I thought it worked really well because I was like, I can't lose these. This is like I do have to like really put effort into protecting these. And then the next couple times I played, it was like, I don't actually need to care about the like it's a bummer. I don't want to lose these buildings, but like it's not that bad, all things considered.
Right.
So I thought it was like a cool thematic catch-up mechanic where, as the person who has the most buildings built and is therefore probably in the lead, you had to contribute to you had to like turn away your attention from like just building buildings to building the defensive structures that you can do instead of buildings. And then I realized that was a lie. So yeah.
When I think of catch-up mechanics, I mostly think of video games over board games. There are some really strong ways of trying to assist the people who are trailing behind, or preventing the person who's leading from snowballing out of control, which is really what catch-up mechanics are. Those are prevalent in board games, but I think the most classic example that's ingrained in most people's minds is like Mario Kart. For decades now, if you're in lead in Mario Kart, the rewards that you get for getting any of the mystery boxes, the items, are strongly limited, whereas the ones that you get if you're further behind are exceptionally powerful. And this is often called a rubber banding mechanic.
Yeah.
You know, the further the discrepancy between, the person in front and the person behind, the game actually tries pushing everyone together. And so when I was thinking about some examples of where this happens in board games, I definitely found some that were obviously trying to just, give a handout to the person who's in last. But my mind kept on going back to the racing thing, and I was thinking about particularly Flamme Rouge and Heat, which are both games that, in some ways, they incentivize you to not be in first place, kind of like in Mario Kart, where you're just asking for a blue shell to wreck your day. So you kind of want to hover towards the front, but not pushing all the way ahead until the last leg of the race. And then I got thinking, is that even catching up? Or is that just playing strategically? So in your mind, what is the clearest example from like a game design perspective of catch-up mechanics?
Yeah, well, one that I think of as like a very, to me, it's funny because it is very similar to the ones you've listed so far, but Cubidos to me is like the most clear example of being in the lead. You're not hindered, like there's nothing pulling you back. You still operate exactly how you've been operating. But in Cubidos, it's a game where you're racing, you roll a lot of dice, you have like a set amount of dice that you are able to roll on your turn. If you are further behind whoever is in first place, there's like these lines that are like every 4 squares or so. I'm not positive on that. It depends on the map too. But every 4 squares or so behind the person in first, you get to just roll an extra dice. You get to roll an extra die on your turn. Where you just, for every 4 spaces back, so if you are super far behind, you just can roll an extra 6 die on your turn. And I think that to me was like the most clear. This is to help people who are losing catch up. In the game, it is justified as you're an underdog. There are fans rooting for you. You're getting like a boost from all of the fans who are cheering for you to like make this a competitive race. And I quite like it because it doesn't, I think it doesn't disincentivize being in first. I think Flamme Rouge and Heat are really great examples of it because I think thematically it makes sense. I think there's a lot of reasons why you don't want to be in the lead in the bike race. Everybody's just going to draft behind you. But
exactly. So just as a quick aside, if people haven't played those, They're deck building games, particularly in Flamme Rouge. If you're at the head of a pack of racers, then you get an exhaustion card. If you're not at the head of the pack of racers, then you avoid the exhaustion card, but you also have the opportunity to slipstream and get free movement, which is an important part of racing to be able to capitalize on the drag and the lack of wind resistance by being behind other vehicles.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think that with Cubitos, you're not disincentivized from being in first. Like in Flamme Rouge, there is you don't want to be in first because you will get these penalty cards for all intents and purposes. Whereas in Cubitos, you just are still playing the game exactly. Oh, it's right here. You're still playing the game exactly as is, where you're gonna roll all of the dice that you've earned so far. So you are at you without any other modifiers can roll 12 dice on your turn, even though everybody shares the same turn. Everybody's taking their turns at the same time. But if you can roll 12 dice on your turn, you don't take a penalty for being in first. And I think it's done really well. I like it quite a lot. I also like the game Cubitos, even though it is a bizarre game.
Very bizarre.
Very bizarre. You
I mean, any game that
is bizarre.
Yeah. Thematically, it's bizarre. Mechanically, it's bizarre. But, that game is cool. So, speaking about games that disincentivize being first, I don't know if this is necessarily disincentivizing, but it does add a strategic component. And those tend to be my favorite. Like ones where it clearly, if someone's trailing behind because they didn't do well, just they didn't strategize, or luck wasn't on their side or whatever, they're rewarded. But there's also kind of like a pushback that you're negotiating against as you're going up the chain, so to speak. Suburbia is one that really comes to mind, in that you actively get points as you play the game, and the higher up that you scale, there are these incremental moments where if you pass them, then your income and your population growth go down a step, and those become narrower and narrower. The amount of space in between, like how many points it takes to get those, is much more frequent as you go higher up. So if you are running away with it, you are taking significant penalties to your income. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because you are still getting tons of points, to get up there in the first place. But you also want to be careful about not like stalling yourself out completely. And so it's causing the player to also kind of self-regulate to a degree in the game.
Yeah, and I think that there are a ton of games you could point to where the catch-up mechanic is just other players womp you for being in first.
Yeah. Right.
Like Root right here, that's kind of the catch-up mechanic in a lot of ways. Catan.
Yeah. Conflict heavy.
There's
conflict heavy, or at least heavy player interaction games where your success depends on your relationship to other players. Yes, they are less in need of having catch-up mechanics, because players can use the social aspect of the game to regulate, or at least in theory, that's what they should be doing.
Yeah.
If one person is running away with it, then the other players should either no longer be giving them benefits or be putting pressure upon them.
Yeah. But I think those ones are just kind of there. It's not really... I don't know that I necessarily consider that a catch-up mechanic, because it feels more just like that is the game. That is the point of the game.
Right. Totally.
Is the social balance.
So I think it just doesn't need a catch-up mechanic. And so the games that do tend to need them are games where they are more the multiplayer solitaire type of game, or where even if there is player interaction, the choices that I make can't either inhibit other players at the table or target and inhibit a specific player at the table, or I can choose to withhold giving them certain benefits that otherwise would be available.
Yeah, so I think some other pretty popular catch-up mechanics that are, I think are it's safe to assume that they are functionally catch-up mechanics, even if they aren't like necessarily intended to be. One that I jotted down here is Dominion. The victory point cards clog up your deck, so if you are kind of running away with the victory point cards, you are going to start having a worse engine in your game. I think a lot of deck builders do similar things. So like Clank has something kind of similar. They have tomes that are like, those are just worth 7 victory points. They don't do anything, so when you draw them, you get nothing for drawing them. They have other cards that are like, they have like the gems where if you put them into your deck, they aren't a dead card because it is just you draw it and then it gives you the action of draw a card. So they're not like dead cards in your deck, but they give you risk in other ways because you have to put Clank into the pile whenever you grab them. And there's, I just feel like depending on the game, there's so many different things you can do to have catch-up mechanics.
Right.
So deck builders have that. Drop Holter, which is the photo I used for the post, has like, in my mind, the most
smartest
fun,
one.
The smartest one. It's the most fun. You add the victory points are bells that you have to keep in your hand while you go to pick up other things and drop other things. And if you drop the bells, you lose that victory point. That's rad. That was...
The more I play that game, the more I think it is maybe one of the most perfectly designed hodgepodge games that's out there, period.
It is like, nonsense. I love it.
and yet, it feels like every part of it is absolutely necessary for what that game is.
Absolutely. It's bananas. So we've listed off a lot of games that have catch-up mechanics, some that are like our favorites, some that aren't good. So I think want to talk about what makes a catch-up mechanic good or work, or like what do we look for with catch-up mechanics. And for me, I really want a catch-up mechanic that just makes sense thematically, or functions without a ton of oversight. So like I think with Flamme Rouge, it makes total sense that they have that like exhaustion mechanic. Like that super thematically works. With another example I had was Photosynthesis, which is a game where you plant trees and your trees give you income every round that you can use to build more trees. But to get any sort of victory points, you have to chop down your biggest trees. Which I think is also like, that is a really great strategic decision that you have to make every turn of, do I keep this tree for another couple rounds to start building more trees, or do I take the victory points because otherwise somebody else will start taking the points away from me?
Right.
And I think for me, those are the kind of catch-up mechanics that I want. Where it's like, it makes sense for this to be in the game, even if it is for just a game design perspective.
I like catch-up mechanics that improve the decision space. So, again, it's something that you kind of have to negotiate with, though if someone is clearly lagging behind, they will more often be able to take advantage of it, and it's not something that you can fully exploit. So, again, Flamme Rouge is something where I think it's really interesting that you're going to maybe not want to be in first place. However, the person who's most often going to be able to take advantage of that, unless they are really far behind, in which case they can't take advantage of anything, is going to be the players who aren't towards the head of the pack. That said, there are games like Comet. Like Comet is such a cutthroat game where things can happen with great severity, really instantly, and the player who has the fewest points is the person who gets to dictate the turn order. And not just they get to be first in turn order, they get to dictate the turn order. So that gives them a lot of ability to sway how the game is going to play out. Like, going first is really important, but you can also, start making Machiavellian plans about, who's going to attack who, or, the cascading dominoes that might happen if it's just set up in sequence. But ostensibly, it's a very simple thing. The person who's in last place gets to decide turn order. So that gives you some cool planning that you can do. As far as how it's implemented, I don't necessarily need it to be super thematic in a game. I guess I always want a catch-up mechanic that is going to make it so that if someone is clearly lagging behind, that they still have a chance in playing the game, or at least have more options to feel like if things just kind of work out for them, then they will be able to catch up.
Yeah.
So that way, if I'm in the lead, I never mind. This is my problem. I never mind losing a game, but because I'm the person who plays the most games in my group, I am often winning a game, and I hate feeling like I'm just absolutely trouncing my opponent. So I'm kind of worse at winning, and so I like a catch-up mechanic that is going to make other people who are less experienced with the game, or aren't having the luck that I'm having, or whatever, have the ability to at least see how the tide could turn without that catch up being the deciding factor of what allows them to turn the tide.
Yeah, and I think it's super important that everybody has a chance to win. I also think that sometimes if you play poorly, you shouldn't have the chance to win. And I think a good catch-up mechanic balances that, where it's like their odds are always shrinking if they are playing poorly, but there's still a chance.
Yeah.
Even if it's not a highly likely chance. And I think that for me is the big one of the things I look for is just, it's not so punishing to the person in first place or so beneficial to the person in last place that you really don't want to be in first. It's babying the person who is in last to the point where they get all of the boosts and just overtake first place. Like in Mario Kart, where if you have the lightning bolt and if you are able item smuggle that up to closer to first place, you can do some damage up there.
Yeah.
But I think that it's obviously nobody. Well, I was gonna say nobody wants to win off of a catch-up mechanic, but some people probably do. Some people are probably super stoked to win however they can. Right. But I definitely like games where optimum play ends up becoming more delicate as it goes. So Suburbia is a great example of that. I don't know that this is necessarily a catch-up mechanic, but one of my favorite things about Whitehall Mystery as a hidden movement game is Jack, at the beginning of the game, has incredible amount of freedom and flexibility, and it feels like, how are we ever going to catch him, because there's so many different places that he can go. But if he's cruising through the game,
by the time he's made his third murder, so the first one is what starts the game, and then two others, well, one murder has to happen in every corner of the map. And so the amount of information that you have as an investigator is towards the end of the game, you know where he's going. Not specifically the exact location, but you know the quadrant that Jack must ultimately get to. And so it's not really a catch-up mechanic, but it is an example of where someone doing really well, it's going to become more and more delicate to maintain that as it goes. And there are other games like Sagrada and Azul, where as the game goes on, if you've done really well and you've filled up your tableau better than other people, the amount of precision that's going to be necessary to complete that tableau is going to be very, very difficult. As opposed to someone who did mediocrely and will have a lot more freedom and flexibility. They're probably not going to catch up, but they're probably not sweating bullets in the same way that you are during those last couple of turns.
Yeah, and I think that it's... Whitehall Mystery is a great example of that, where it is just like... It is the options become so limited, and that you have to start playing a lot more precisely in a way where it feels more difficult, even if it is more difficult. But you're still in a position to win. Like, you are still doing everything you need to do to win. And I think that there's a lot of games where a player who is doing better accepts like a bigger burden whenever they take like a big leap. So like in Agricola, when you get another worker, a child, you now have to start paying their food costs. And so it's like a little bit of a balancing act of, okay, when will I be able to like afford having that extra food costs? I mean, immediately.
Teenage babies.
Start having babies in your teens is what Jack would like you to start doing.
In, I guess, like 16th century farming.
In 16th century farming, that was definitely what's happening. But like, I think that that's also a fun way of doing catch-up mechanics where the decision space is widened of like, does it make sense to have the child right now?
Upkeep. With great power comes great responsibility. If you are going to have the capability to place additional workers, you also need to figure out how you're going to feed those workers, which is going to be a continual struggle. Though, in a game like Agricola, as long as you're playing smartly, if you're playing bigly, then it's going to be worth it. Whereas if you don't know how to really grab that game by the horns and just make the food economy work for you, you're going to have a real bad time if you get a couple extra mouths to feed.
Yeah, I think that there's a few games where like the burden of upkeep, that was a good way of phrasing it, functions as a catch-up mechanic in a way that is pleasant, where it is done well to the point where, as the players, it makes sense that you would have to pay more resources to have an additional worker or additional bonuses for whatever reason. But it isn't, again, it feels like it isn't punishing the person in first place. I think that's one of the things that I don't like on rip. I don't like punishing the player in first to keep the game close. There are times when it makes sense. So again, like Flamme Rouge, we've talked about. One that I also think about is Power Grid, where the person who is in first can't negotiate or like gets much worse value out of being in first. So there's actually a little bit of you sometimes want to be in last, so you get the best value out of the resources. Where it doesn't feel like it's punishing the player in first, even if it is. Like, it's not punishing them inherently, but it's punishing them by making everybody else better.
Right.
Which I guess that is what a catch-up mechanic is. So maybe I just don't like them.
I think almost always the best way to handle it is if there's a social element to your game where you can decide either to help or hinder your opponent. The problem is that typically only works in games where you have 3 or more players. So if you have 2 or more players, then if your game relies on social elements to prevent someone from running away, then it's just going to be bad. Now, on the other hand, I don't want to prohibit the fun of the game. You know, like I'm looking at Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition behind you. As far as I can recall, that doesn't have any catch-up mechanics in it, and the game is really dynamic, and you're just going to be building a ton of stuff. And I think the game's only like consolation to players is get good. You know, like. You're going to be building. The fun of this game is that you are going to be making this massive corporate empire on Mars, and you want all these things to be in conjunction working towards that, and everyone's doing that at the same time. There is a small degree of social element where you could be thinking about, I don't want to play this card because that might allow the other player to get the phase that they really want, but that's not actually happening at the table. Like the level of getting into someone else's head without knowing what cards are in their hand, what cards that they're going to play, rarely does that feel like a meaningful decision. And so the game is really just everyone hungrily grabbing as many cards and resources as they can, and then trying to use those as quickly and as efficiently as the game will allow them. And that's fun. Like, I don't need that to have like a big giant catch-up mechanic. Whereas a game where you don't have as much decision space, where it's meant to be a more low stakes game, I could see maybe, like person in last gets a couple extra resources or something. But even that feels it almost feels patronizing sometimes, like, oh well, Jackson last, so we better give him 2 extra fish tokens.
Here's your stinking fish, Jack.
I know, right?
I think that I don't want games where you are like dissuaded from working towards completing the game. So like with Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition, if there was some reason why you lost money by terraforming Mars, that would feel really bad. Like the point of the game is to terraform Mars, and I don't want it to be like it would really suck if you are dissuaded from working towards completing the game. And I think that most games probably don't need catch-up mechanics. I think that there are not a lot of games where I'm like, oh, this really needs to be rubber banded in some way. Like, I think even that game of Builders of Baldur's Gate where I won 130 to like, or 140, whatever it ended up being, where like I was 90 points ahead of them to the it still never felt like it was they need some way to come back. Like, it felt like it was just bad luck on their part, and I think that can suck, but that's more about luck dependent games than anything else. Like, I think that most games already do get by without catch-up mechanics. I think that if they offer an interesting choice that you make as a player, like if they help make the game more fun, yeah, totally. that makes a lot of sense, and I think that there's nothing wrong with that. But just I think overall game design has
we
grown
play
fast.
games.
Yeah.
Yeah, the reason we play games is, like we want to feel like we had a hand in the victory that we accomplish. And if it feels like the game gave us the win, especially at the expense of someone else who was doing well, and the game system just decided for us to win, then that sucks. Whether that's random chance or whether that's like a catch-up mechanic, that just always feels lame and sucks. So like sometimes the answer is just get good. And we want that. There's entire generations of kids playing chess and learning to play chess against adults, and you just got to accept that you're going to lose until you don't. And that's part of the skill development in a lot of these games. I like having random elements in games because that gives some, leveling of the playing field, some opportunity for unexpected plays and that kind of thing. And I'm much more interested in making cohesive access to victory through means like that, rather than just catch-up mechanics. And I'll admit, even though I reach to Mario Kart as an example of this, I don't think that that's necessarily the most fun example. Like there have been plenty of times in playing those games where it's like, man, I lost that gold medal 150cc because the game decided I wasn't allowed to have it. I was
Blue
doing
shell.
so good.
Blue shell. Every 30 seconds.
Nonstop.
As soon as the cooldown is off on blue shell. Blue shell.
Ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
I think that video games have a couple different ways they can do it. And again, just because of the way video games are different than board games, they can change the numbers on the fly, like using computer algorithm to be just like, oh, if you're winning, your attacks do less damage. Like I think in Smash Brothers, there's a comeback mechanic where if you're really far down, your attacks start doing more damage. At least in Smash Ultimate, I believe that's the case. My memory is right, where it's just like you can have these catch-up mechanics be implemented in ways that are just more flowing and less obvious, whereas in board games it feels like there are going to be it's very difficult for it to not be obvious that you have a catch-up mechanic in play.
And everyone knows that Eric and I are Final Destination, no items, Falco's only type of players.
No,
Melee.
No. And Melee,
wave dashing.
Yeah.
No. As the end of this, or maybe you'll have something else to say, and I don't get to say that this is the end of this. But, we've talked a lot about Harmonies over the past year since we both got our hands on it, and Harmonies is a very accessible game, not incredibly deep, but it is, clearly something that's meant to appeal to a broad audience. It's visually spectacular. It doesn't have incredibly complex mechanics. And there is no catch-up mechanic in that.
No.
There's just on your turn,
no need.
You draft the tiles, and then you play them, and either you do good or you don't. And I think that's an incredibly accessible, appealing game that so many people are going to like, and win or lose, you still feel like you had a hand in it. And I know that there are games that benefit from having catch-up mechanics, but that's an example of a game where I think it would be soured by adding anything to it.
Yeah, I agree. Well, and one thing that I did want to touch on is I think Harmonies is a great example of this. And there are a number of other games that do this well, which is just instead of having a catch-up mechanic where the player who is in last feels like they still have a chance, there's some way to obfuscate who is doing well. Like in Harmonies, you have no you if you are playing enough that you are able to keep track of things better, you have a pretty good handle of who's doing well and who's not. But when you're starting out, and even if you're like you've played a few games, you know how the rules work, you still might not be able to like look at somebody's board and be like, oh, they're doing really well or really poorly. And I think a lot of games are able to obfuscate how well somebody's doing to the point where the person in last doesn't know that they're in last. Or like the person in last doesn't feel like they don't have a chance because they don't realize that they don't have a chance. Like, I think that is a way that a lot of games can be designed. Like, you can design the game to that point where you just, instead of being able to calculate out exactly how well somebody is doing, you can just not be able to do that. And I think that is a better way of solving the problem of the person last not having very much fun because they feel like they're losing heavily.
That's some big brain meme type of stuff there. Like you can't tell that you're losing, or there's some meme wording here that I've completely lost.
There's memeing. There's memeing to be had there.
I'm too old.
You're not too old to meme. You can meme just fine. You've memed before, on occasion.
On occasion, I'm known to meme. I'm too old to meme on a sunny Sunday afternoon after a run.
That's fair. I'm gonna have to meme. I'm gonna have to meme for the thumbnail. I'll do like the think, Jack, think. I'll Photoshop myself there. It'll be good. It'll be good. It'll be good.
I've always thought of you as the Omni-Man of my life.
I wish I could be J.K. Simmons.
It would be great.
He's got it.
He's got it everywhere.
He's got it everywhere.
Whiplash, Invincible,
J. Jonah Jameson.
That movie where he played a demonic glory hole.
Listen, he's got it going on. He's like
J.K.
Stacey's mom. J.K. Simmons is just like Stacey's mom.
That's what the song says.
I think that's as good a note as any to end the podcast on. That feels good. That feels right.
I think so.
Thank you to everybody for tuning in and listening to us have this meandering chat about catch-up mechanics. If you have any topic ideas, please feel free to email us at cardboardherald@gmail.com or comment them down in the comments below on whatever platform you're on. We are open to kind of whatever. If you have any thoughts about catch-up mechanics, your favorite ones or the ones that you think are not very good, let us know. We're down to chat. We'll be in the comments responding as necessary or as we would like to. Thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for listening. Thanks for being an awesome community. I have been Eric along with Jack.
Bye.